Welcome back to Good Living. Well, of course, it's been dominating our news in the last 24 hours, and that is the budget that was released yesterday. And David Munro joins me now from Spices just to talk a little bit more about it in depth. David, thank you for joining me on Good Living. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, thanks, Megan.
Busy 24 hours for you guys.
Very much so.
Yeah. So tell me, what's your ideas of the budget? What did you think?
Well, this budget for 2010 is all about tax reform. The government announced yesterday that it has signalled the most significant overhaul of our tax system in some 25 years.
Goodness.
So it is very significant from that perspective.
It's huge, isn't it? How does it compare to the last budget?
Well, the budget for 2009 was getting us through the global financial crisis. We're part way there. This budget for 2010 is all about lifting our rate of economic growth and increasing the living standards of New Zealanders. It's continuing the process of moving our economy away from borrowing, from consumption, from government spending, and back towards accelerating investment in productive areas and saving and exporting more goods.
So this has got to be good for us as an economy and a country.
It's good for us as an economy, as a country, and it should be good for us as residents in that we have an opportunity to all be better off.
Really, that's good news. Good to hear that. So what are some of the big tax issues that we're talking about?
I think there's four major items. First of all, we've got a reduction in tax rates across the board. We've got an increase in GST. Both of those kick in on the 1st of October. There's a surprise element there too, with corporate tax rates reducing from next year, and we've seen the closing of some loopholes that have benefited property investors.
So that's got to be good news as well.
Indeed, it's levelled the playing field.
So the key points, let's talk specifically about the numbers.
Sure.
So GST rises.
GST rises from 12.5% to 15%, kicks in on 1st of October. Doesn't apply to rental payments and mortgage repayments, but pretty much covers everything else that we consume and or spend our money on.
Okay.
In its own right, it's not a pleasant announcement, but it's coupled with what I call significant tax savings. And we're seeing the expected tax cuts for personal income earners at the top end, those who earn more than $70,000. We're seeing tax cuts at the bottom end, those who are from $0 to $14,000. But more importantly, there are significant cuts in the middle two bands. Those who earn up to $48,000, their rate drops from 21% down to 17.5%. And that is a big cut.
Yes, that is. That's
Yes.
quite significant, isn't it?
Yes.
So what is the benefit for the government when they rise GST but also decrease our income tax? And in a sense, it seems to even itself out. So what is the benefit of doing that?
Well, it's part of the move by government to give more cash in the hands of New Zealanders. GST is a discretionary tax.
Right.
And you have the opportunity of saving that money, and I suspect a lot of people will put their tax cut straight into the bank and save for a rainy day.
Right, right. So that's what they're wanting us to do.
I believe so.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, company tax, because that's changed as well, hasn't it?
This is a real surprise. We have received within this budget news that corporate rates drop from 30% to 28%, and this has leapfrogged the Australian announcement in their budget. So that's one up for New Zealand over Australia. The Aussies, of course, don't have their cuts until 2015. They're phased in over a 3-year period, and we've got a good advantage there.
Great. So once again, ours will take effect from October the 1st.
From next year.
Oh, from next year?
Yes.
Okay. Now, the rate on portfolio investments in unit trusts and superannuations, that changes as well?
It does too. These savings investments, they see their rate drop from 30% to 28%. So we do have a level playing field there.
And the good news as well is for New Zealand super and also working for families. There's good news there too, isn't there?
Yes, for people who are on fixed incomes and reliant on benefits to maintain their living standards, they have been concerned about the impact of increased GST. Well, there's good news for them. They're going to get a 2.02% increase in their benefits to compensate for that GST.
Okay, so that's good.
It is.
Let's talk about some of the other findings that came out of the budget, because I know that there's changes now and money that's being spent on health. That's on an increase as well, isn't it?
Indeed, there's extra dollars for health, some $2.4 billion over the next 4 years. We're going to see $517 million of that in this first year.
Good.
We're also seeing an increase in funding for education, some $1.4 billion over the next 4 years. And we're also seeing some money set aside for infrastructure projects.
This is good, isn't it?
This will be some $200 million set aside for increasing the speed of our broadband, and we can't wait for that to happen.
I know, thank goodness. That must be fantastic news for almost everyone.
Indeed.
You know, it's such an age now for that, isn't
Yes.
it? And $500 million for rail?
500 million for rail, yes. It's the long-forgotten means of transport in New Zealand.
So they're trying to use that now as another means of transport?
It's an alternative, yes.
That's great, isn't it? And also the school buildings as well.
Yes, there's a sum of money set aside for new buildings and schools.
And to increase our prison capacity.
Yes, it's a feature too.
Yes, it is. It's all there, isn't it? So investment properties, that's going to be some news as well for people that are investing in, as you say, kind of trying to cover that loophole.
Yes, no surprises there. There's been much signalling in advance of a need to level the playing field. And from next year, property owners and businesses who own rental properties are no longer going to be able to claim depreciation allowances on buildings that have a useful life of 50 years or more.
So that's now going to make it more of an even playing field.
It's going to level the
investments, I
playing
guess.
field. There is another feature there too, in that some taxpayers have been using tax losses from rental properties to increase their eligibility for working for family benefits, and that's been struck out now too.
Okay, they won't be able to do that any longer.
No.
So let's break it down now, David. If we talk about a typical family with 2 children on the average household income of $76,000, we are going to be better off.
We're going to be better off. We need to take that into 2 components. Firstly, there's the tax break with the reduced tax that they'll pay, and secondly, there's the increased GST that they'll pay. So when you net one off against the other, they'll be better off by about $25 a week.
Okay, so that's good. And if we bring it down again to the average person earning perhaps, say, $50,000?
$50,000, the average income earner, he or she's going to be better off with the tax cuts by about $1,530 a year. That is worth around $29.71, say $30 a week. And about half of that will be given up in the GST increase. So they'll be $14 to $15 net better off per week.
Okay, so around about $60 a month or so.
Indeed.
Fantastic.
Yes.
Oh, good, some wonderful insight there. Thank you very much, David Munro from Spices. We do appreciate you coming in. I know it is going to be busy from here on in for you guys, so thank you for taking the time. We appreciate that.